Now being recorded.
This is Global Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
You're back in court and you get found guilty on the retrial, and you get sentenced to 15 years to life. What were you feeling at that moment? Were you feeling some type of relief that you didn't have your original sentence reinstated?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I said I got. They gave me 25 to life altogether, but the actual murder carried 15 to life, and the gun enhancement consecutive was 10. So altogether it was 25 to life. But yeah, no, it was liberating, to be honest with you. From when they called us back up to the courtroom, even when they were when the jury was back there in the jury room doing the case, when they called us back up there, the question that they had for us was like, if we don't use the first degree conviction papers, what do we do? You know, like do we throw those, or do we have to put anything on them? Because you know they give them forms to, like, if you got first degree, second degree, or acquittal, and they were basically asking the court, what do we do with the first degree papers if we don't use them? So when they came back out with the verdict, I already knew that I didn't have a first degree conviction anymore. You know, so as soon as they asked that question, like, I remember feeling like liberated, like something. And it's crazy because, to be honest with you, I still, like, there was nothing in me even at that point in my life that I was ever going to get out of prison. But just knowing that I wasn't coming back to prison with a life without, for some reason, it did something to my soul. You know, like it made me feel some kind of way that day. I remember, like, smiling more so than anything because my family was back there in the courtroom, like. And so, you know, like, to them, that was hope. You know what I mean? Even though for me at that time it wasn't really hope. It was just like, all right, well, at least it's something they have to look forward to. Because, you know, nobody wants to know that their husband or their father or their son or their brother is sitting in prison with life without the possibility of parole, because that just sounds like, you know, it sounds crazy, you know. So when I got my second sentence,
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
it was definitely it was a good moment. You know, again, I wasn't in a place in my life to truly appreciate it because I was still consumed by the criminal lifestyle, my gang beliefs, and my warped belief system, and all my character defects. I still had a lot of things going on inside me that I couldn't truly appreciate it. But I know that I was happy that I wasn't coming back with the life without the possibility of parole. You know, because I basically was a walking corpse that was doing life without. You know.
At this time when you got sentenced, pretty much having a sentence that carried or had a life in it, you were pretty much not gonna get out. There was only a 1% chance that you were able to come home at that time, right?
Oh, absolutely. Whether you got 7 to life or 50 to life, if you had a kickstand behind your number, if you had a life sentence, an elbow, you weren't, like, there was no getting out. You know, the board process back then was a farce and a sham. You know what I mean? It was just a formality. Like, very few people were actually earning their freedom. But you got to remember too, though, that CDC was a different place back then. You know, they didn't have rehabilitation. They weren't rebuilding people, restoring people. This prison was a warehouse. It wasn't a recovery center. It wasn't a rehabilitation. It was all about, you know, send these dudes up here and let them die on the shelf. You know.
How long did you end up sitting in the county jail before you got shipped out to prison?
I stayed down there the last. Well, after I got my time, I probably, like, right after I got my time, low key, they sent me right up here. Like I told you, they continued it for 1 month, and the captain of my jail was actually one of the homicide investigators for my case, and they wanted me out of there. I had been terrorizing my county for a while, and so they were basically like, I came down. I was in Ad Seg, and I came down for the court that morning, and he told me, hey, he goes, you know what's going to happen today? And I told him, I don't know. He said, they're throwing out all your other cases, and you're gone today. And I go, what does that mean? And he's like, if I have it my way, he goes, you'll be in prison tomorrow. And that was on a Friday. And literally the next day they put me on a van and they sent me to the downtown jail in Riverside. And that Monday morning I was sitting in Delano in reception in prison. You know, like they literally got me out of there that quick.
And that was unheard of.
Usually takes you about a month because they got to send all your paperwork up to CDC, and you know it takes like a whole little process before you catch the chain. You know, it's not like they will like it's not that quick. Like they literally forced with me. I got sentenced on Friday. They got all my cases thrown out that same day, my trailing cases, and like I said, that was Friday morning. On Saturday in the morning, I caught a van by myself with the sheriffs over to the Riverside jail. They kept me in the basement right there all Saturday night till Saturday night till Sunday morning, and then Sunday night I stayed in the basement, and Monday morning I caught the chain with everybody else to the reception center.
So once you reach prison, do you want to share some of your experience and what you went through while you were on the main line?
Yeah, I got to the reception center. I got to reception center in January I figured January something, January 20th, somewhere January of 2008, and I got there. They sent me to what is it, D3 at the time. It was like the only good building on the yard. I guess the rest of the buildings on that yard were no good, so they sent me to I don't know if it was the left or the right side. I can't remember, but it's crazy because my co-defendant was actually on the other side. He was actually there. I was on one side. He was on the other side. You know. And so I got there. He had been there before me though, so he was kind of already established there. And I got there, and it's a trip because, like I said, I kind of half-assed, you know, called myself a superstar coming out of my county, you know. But you get to prison, and now you just another number, you know. Because I come from a little, you know, like I said, I'm from a little place out here in the Riverside County, a little desert area, and so, you know, I was calling myself a superstar out here, and then I get up there, and you got dudes from everywhere. You know what I mean? Like you in prison now, you know and so it's like half the cats that you around never even heard of your town. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. You know. So I get up here to reception, and there's a cat there. I remember a dude there from Monte Flores. He ended up having the whole little, what you want to call it, like the building, you know, and so he, of course, as soon as I get there, you know, I'm a wire baby, so I kind of got a little bit of renegade on mine. So being told what to do by dudes I don't know, it wasn't really my pedigree, you know. So luckily I had been in the county for so long that I kind of learned to adapt a little bit. But at the same time, you still want to let your nuts hang. You still want to, you know, make your presence felt, and especially when you coming from. I had been in the county jail getting my ride on for so long, you know. So when I get up there, mind you, I was in the county for 6.5 years, you know. So when I finally made it up to prison, it was a little different, you know. So I was in reception for like 7 months, because probably about 3 months after I got there, me and a homie from Pacoima ended up doing a removal. We ended up getting beating up on some dude. They wanted some cat in the back right there, some cat for Coachella, actually, from my area. They wanted him in the back. And back then you used to go to the hole for removal. So we ended up doing a little two-on-one and removing this cat. And so I ended up back there in the ad seg in reception in Delano. And so it was that was pretty much like the only real bullshit I had to deal with right there in reception, you know.
And when you did this removal, was this something that you volunteered for, or were you asked, or were you required?
No, I mean, pretty much everybody's required. You know, that I don't know if it's so much like that anymore, but I know at one point in time, like, if you call yourself a Sureño, you know, you're required. You know, if they ask you, you don't say no. You know, it's just not how I was conditioned. This is how most people, you know, like if they ask you, you're supposed to consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to put in work. You know what I mean? I know I can look back now and think about how, you know, how silly that sounds, but at that point in time, it was like, hey, if they're asking me to do something, then hell yeah, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna make my barrio shine. I'm gonna make the sur shine. You know, I'm more than happy to do something for somebody. You know, and it's the same train of thought that I had when I committed the murder that got me life in prison. You know what I mean? Like, I was more than willing to do something for somebody else just to look cool and be accepted by a group of individuals, you know. So I came to prison with that same mindset, you know. And so when they asked, I was like, yeah, for sure. Like he's from my area for sure. They want him in the back. Let's go. I know the dude that's back there that's sending the kite. Don't trip. So basically, that's what happened.
So once you did the removal, you ended up, did they move you over to another area, or did you just go to your next facility?
No, you go to what you do is you go to D5. It's an ad seg right there in Delano. It's where the whole it's administrative segregation. So like right there, they you escort in handcuffs. They don't ever let you out. They feed you in your cell. They let you out to the cages. They cuff you. They escort you to your shower. They escort you to the cages. Back then they still had group yard. So they escort you out to group yard as soon as your double cell cleared, as soon as your large group cleared, and so you back then they were only giving you like 8 months would be your shoe for a removal for a 2-on-1 for a battery on an inmate, and so it would be you'll get like 8 months with half, and you'll do like 4 months and get kicked back out to the main line. So what happened is I got kicked out from right there, and I went to A yard to Delano A yard. To was it A5, and A yard was a mainline build. They had 2 buildings that were mainline, and they had 3 buildings that were reception. So that was a level 3 mainline right there in Delano A yard, and so I got kicked out right there to 5 block, and then and I ended up getting into it with a Huda over some pisto, over some pruno and some bullshit, and I ended up moving to 4 block eventually. But it was a trip because I had ran into some dude right there from Ontario and 5 blocks. As soon as I got there, my homeboy from my barrio, I landed in a cell right next to him. And he was like, man, where you coming from? Because we actually caught the chain up there to reception together, but he ended up going to another yard. And I ended up going to that building on D yard. And so he was like, man, where you been at? He's like, I heard you went to the hole. I was like, yeah. He goes, fools are coming over here. So I ended up landing right there and basically like got into some half-ass politics, reception politics, right there, picking up the building and helping out right there. And so me and the homie from Bassett, we used to make beef. So, and I guess the Huda in that building was like, that was like her pet peeve. Like she hated Pruno, and so she made a big old pancho and ended up kicking me out of the building. She found some Pruno in my cell and kicked me out of the building and sent me over to 4 block.
When we started this conversation, you had mentioned that you ended up with your co-defendant. Did you guys come in contact with each other since he was on the other side, or how does that work?
Yeah, he was. When I say the other side, because when you get to reception, they have A and B side. I don't mean the other side like SNY and GP. Like in here, we use that term. The other side usually means you're on that side, like you're either active, or like when I was active, when I referred to fools on the other side, I meant fools that were on the SNY, and so when
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I was in A section and he was in B section, so we ended up selling up. He was my cellie. He took off to Calipat, and that's kind of why I ended up agreeing to just take off on that highlight, because he ended up leaving. He took off to Calipatria, and I was endorsed to the 180. So I was going to go to High Desert. So I was like, man, let me, if I can put at that point in time, if you went to AdSeg, it stopped your transfer, stopped everything. You know what I mean? Like you got a write up, and nobody was trying to go to High Desert back then. You know what I mean? Because like High Desert was like a madhouse.
When you were so I'm assuming you didn't hold any ill will towards him since you were celled up with him.
Yeah, no, I didn't have no. Oh, let me clarify. So that's not my co-defendant. I had 4 co-defendants, right? Well, there was 4 of us. It was me and 3 other co-defendants, right? One of my co-defendants testified against us. That one, that's the one I at that point in time, I felt some kind of.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
My other 2 co-defendants, I didn't have no ill will. One of them he just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's the one I celled up with right there. And my other co-defendant, he's the one that actually paid me for the murder, And the crazy thing about all this, the irony in all this is all my co-defendants are on the streets now. I'm the only one still sitting in prison,
How did that happen?
So the one, my homeboy Clever, he testified against us, and then my other homeboy, he actually got out on the 1170, the felony murder rule, because they gave him life because aiding and abetting my murder. And then my other co-defendant, he went to board and he got actually found suitable. The one that they say basically planned the whole murder and put the whole murder, the one that they said hired me to commit this murder, he's the one that actually got out through board.
And were they? Did everybody parole? Were they